And then just a quick reminder, in the last 15 minutes, we'll be doing a Q&A. So you're welcome. If you kind of move your cursor around at the bottom of your screen, a little menu should pop up and there should be a little tab for the chat box. You're welcome to just tap on the chat box and then put your questions in there, and I'll be happy to provide them to Debra and Hallie towards the end for the Q&A. So we have a few more people that are joining us now. So it's so wonderful to see everybody this evening. So I am going to go ahead and get started. So I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. Very excited to welcome you to Women in Words, an evening of mystery. And I think this is the perfect evening for it with the snow and the slush and the cold. So if you read my welcome in the beginning of the waiting room, grab your favorite evening beverage and a warm fuzzy blanket and settle in, because I am super excited about tonight. As a mystery buff myself, these two authors stood out to me at Jewish Book Council, so I'm very excited to be able to bring them in this evening. A special thanks to the Jewish Federation of Greater Toledo, the Jewish Senior Service Supporting Organization, and the Jewish Book Council for making this evening possible. And so on with the show. So our first author, Debra Goldstein, grew up in New Jersey and Michigan, and then after school up at the team up north, for all of us Ohio State fans, she headed to New York, the big city, New York, and to pursue a publishing career. And after taking her turn as a contestant on Jeopardy and a career in law and litigation, she finally listened to family and friends and pursued her writing dreams. Our other speaker this evening, Hallie Ephron, on the other hand, as she puts it, she was the last to succumb to her genes. And she grew up in a family of Hollywood writers and has found her niche writing domestic thrillers. So if our ladies would like to go ahead and unmute themselves.
And I'll say go blue because I see Joanne with the right shirt on.
So as domestic, I've just mentioned domestic thrillers. So that kind of leads me to my first question, Hallie. You were the last of 4 daughters to start writing. What took so long?
That is a really good question, because everyone else came out of the chute writing, and I came out of the chute saying, I'm not a writer. Writing doesn't come easily to me. You know, some people from very young, they write diaries and poetry and letters. I'm a list maker, you know. When things bother me, I make a list of what I need to do to fix it, and then the writing involved is check, 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 check when I do it, or crossing it off. So I really had to force myself to be a storyteller. And I don't write romantic comedy. I can be funny, but only for about a half a page. And then I kind of run out of jokes. And so I wasn't going to go down that road. And also, if you have a sister like Nora, I mean, she was phenomenal in terms of talent, absolutely world class. And just imagine being the sister that's following behind, you know, trying to make my own name. I had to get old enough where I stopped caring about whether people compared me to her and just do my own thing. And that's what I've done. I don't write what any of my sisters write. I love what they write, but, you know, I found my own niche. But it was after, briefly, careers in teaching, high tech. I did a lot of other things. I had my babies. I raised them. I sent them to college. And then when the playroom was empty, I turned it into an office.
And Debra, you majored in English, then became a judge. And finally, lucky for us, you listened to your family, and you did mention that you've had a funny story. So how do we go from English major, pursuing a career in publishing, to a judge in litigation? And what is that story? How did that happen?
Well, with me, it was a matter of, I thought I wanted to be either in publishing or law, and I wasn't sure. So I graduated from U of M early and went to New York because when you're 17, 18, you think you can do anything. So 2 days later, I was in New York with my resume and I was interviewing. I got lucky. I got a job at the bottom of the heap. And just in case things didn't work out, I had been doing law school applications at night because this was December. And I figured I gave myself 8 months to get to my two goals, which was get a job in publishing, get on Jeopardy! I was lucky enough that I accomplished my goals and I realized I was going to be stuck at the bottom and I didn't want to do that. So in the fall, I went to law school. But the problem is when you go to law school, you suddenly stop writing creatively. You start writing the most boring type of things. So in one breath, I'm writing the briefs and things, and I was a litigator for 12 years before I became a judge. And then I'll get to the quick story. But I was the one who used to write the comedy things on the side for every organization. I was writing the comedy. When I published my first book, which is a mystery on the University of Michigan's campus, Maize in Blue, I was still on the bench. And I tried to keep the two things very separate. I sold my second book after my first one was offered to another publisher. It wasn't coming out for a year. And I thought everything was cool. Now, when you're on a bench for 20 some years, you have the lawyers trained. So for example, if Hallie was a lawyer in front of me, she would be trained at the end of every hearing to say, I'd say, is there anything further? She would say no, and I would do an automatic closing. On this day, the lawyer, who was an excellent lawyer, said, no, Your Honor. His client said, yes, there's one more thing. I looked to the lawyer and he went, so I knew we were in trouble. I asked the client, yes, sir, what is it? And he said, Your Honor, I just want you to know, no matter how you rule, I'm gonna buy your book. I had to keep a straight face, which I did. And I hate to tell you, but I don't think he bought the book because I ruled against him. But I went home that night and I said to my husband, we just got the fourth kid out of school. We have nobody else to educate. What do you think? Can we run the numbers? And if the numbers work out, I'm going in and I'm telling them, because I was only 36 when I got the job and the average age was 58. So I said, I'm going in because if I can stay healthy for 20 some years, I can have a whole new career and follow my passion. And as you can see, things worked out. I'm having a blast. I'm in my second childhood. And thanks everybody for coming tonight.
Yeah, and so the books that are bringing us here tonight are Two Bites Too Many by Debra Goldstein and Hallie's book, Careful What You Wish For. So Debra, can you tell us a little bit about Two Bites Too Many?
Sure. Let me just back up and tell you, Sarah Blair is my protagonist. And Sarah finds being in the kitchen more frightening than murder. So in the first book, unfortunately, this is a woman who was married at 18, divorced at 28, and all she got out of the marriage was Rara, the cat. But we're here for Two Bites Too Many, which was the second book in the series. And as you can see, Rara has a friend, Fluffy. Sarah is big on family. She has a twin sister who happens to be an excellent cook. And in the second book, the first book, her sister had been accused of murdering Sarah's ex-husband. You know, these things happen when you make award-winning rhubarb tarts. But in the second book, the sister wants to open a restaurant. The bank turns her down, and the twins' mother, who is what you call a Southern belle, comes in and she goes after the bank president. And unfortunately, he dies. And the person left with blood on her hands, the only one in the locked room, is Mother Mabel. So Sarah has to decide, I've got to get into this. I've got to solve the mystery, or my mother is going to jail. The bottom line of my books are they're meant to be fun. They're meant to be beach reads. And in Two Bites Too Many, they're a character study as well.
And Hallie, can you tell us about Careful What You Wish For?
I will. It's the story of a professional organizer, somebody who helps people downsize, helps people get their arms around the chaos of the stuff in their lives. And she's married to a man who cannot pass a yard sale without stopping. Now, I am married to a man who cannot pass a yard sale without stopping. So I know this from the inside. And I think it's the fact that we have a garage and an attic and a basement for him to put his stuff, and he's willing to put it there, that our marriage has survived, because he's a sweet guy. He's a great guy. But the stuff could just drive you nuts. It's like sometimes I say, I'll kill you if you bring one more thing into this house. And I don't mean it, of course, but in the book that I've written, Careful What You Wish For, it's about a professional organizer married to a guy like my husband, but not as nice as my husband, I have to say. Stephanie, you read it, so you know he's not the nicest guy. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. And she's a former teacher like me, so I got to write. When you write, you get to kind of get on your soapbox. And one of my soapboxes about teaching, I taught for many years, is how testing has taken the joy out of it. I just feel like I'm so glad I don't have to do what the poor teachers today do, and that focus on teaching kids to fill out the bubbles and figure out the right answer. It's numbing, mind numbing for the kids and for the teachers. So anyway, my character's like that. She's a former teacher. She starts this business as a professional organizer, and she has clients. And a lot of her clients are in what she would call mixed marriages. In other words, the wife collects, the husband doesn't, or the other way around. And I got to really think about the different ways that people who collect, who are connoisseurs. They have collections and they want to put this one missing piece in, or people who just can't leave something on the sidewalk. That's my husband. There's all kinds of different ways. And in the book, there are, she has two clients. One of them is a woman whose husband has died a year ago, and she has his office is like a mausoleum. I mean, the cup of coffee he was drinking the day he died is still there. And she finally needs help to clear things out. And so Emily comes in to help her. And in the process, they discover a bill from a self-storage unit that she never knew he had. And so a big part of the mystery is what's in the self-storage unit. Now, I write creepy but not icky.
Mm-hmm.
Which means when they open up that storage unit, you can be pretty sure there won't be a severed head in there. That's not what I write, okay? But there is some pretty interesting stuff in there, which I won't tell you what it is. Her second client is a woman whose husband uses stuff to control his environment. He's got his collections of advertising signs on the walls, and he won't let her bring any of her own belongings from before she was married to him. None of her furniture or art can come into the house. They're all in the garage. And she's finally realized he's never going to let her bring them in. And so she asks Emily to help her. And as they bond, these two women who have husbands who drive them crazy because of their stuff, I'm channeling a little bit of Patricia Highsmith. If you remember in Strangers on a Train, two men meet, they complain, they have somebody in their lives that's making them crazy. They can't kill them themselves, but they could swap murders. So Emily doesn't realize exactly what's going on because she's a little bit drunk going through this house, and finds herself knee deep in a very bad place. So that's the story. It's just really quickly, it was reviewed by Jamie Lee Curtis in Time magazine, and she loved it. She said, "I don't like scary books." Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't like scary books, but she loved my book. I was like over the moon because we both come from Hollywood families. I've never met her. She's got gray hair like me. She writes. I just think she's the cat's pajamas. I was thrilled.
So Hallie, your character's profession, the professional organizer, plays quite a bit of a role in the book, like you said. So how do you research for something like that?
You make friends with professional organizers. I mean, NAPO, I don't know if anyone out there knows about the National Association of Professional Organizers. I found out about them. They're wonderful. There's a New England chapter, and I went to a meeting. which, you can find out about them on the internet. And I found some wonderful sources, women who are professional organizers who answered all my questions about, how do you run? I mean, part of being a professional organizer is being a small business owner. So I did a lot of project management in high tech before I started writing. So a lot of what I know about budgeting and managing complicated projects, I was just able to apply after I kind of checked that they would translate. And I also was interested in, you know, could you just get a phone call from somebody who says they want help, go to their house at 8 at night and not feel in danger? I mean, how do you protect yourself? I wanted to know. Do you ever, carry mace? How do you check out that someone's legitimate and that you're not getting, anyway, there's so many questions I had, and I had wonderful help. And one of the women, in fact, did some events with me, which was great. So go to the source. That's the answer. People are always so I'm sure Debra knows this too, that people are so generous about if you're writing about their profession or their family kind of something. People are amazingly helpful.
Yeah, and that was going to be my question, for Deborah, because Sarah, her main character, works for a lawyer. So she does have a little bit of that background, but Sarah's twin sister and her fiance, they're chefs, and it's that whole running a kitchen and running, did you do kind of the same thing, go to the source?
I had to, because when I started writing these books, when I wanted to write a cozy, because to me, those were the fun books to read, I realized there were a few things I had a problem with. I could find a small town, I could find a setting, but I don't like crafts and I don't like the kitchen. So I had a major issue because those cozies often deal with those. So I like to eat, as you can tell. And I have a lot of friends who are excellent chefs. Birmingham, Alabama has become a real foodie place. So a number of my friends, Frank Stitt and all these people who are James Beard winners and all, they all took me through their kitchens and they answered my questions, and I stole from them because they were laughing so hard because Sarah only knows how to make things that are either takeout or have ingredients like Jell-O in a can or spinach pie made with Stouffer's souffle. Her sister is a gourmet chef, and growing up, we talked about families. My mother used to be an excellent chef, and my sister would follow her around, and I'd lie on the couch and watch Perry Mason. So I know how to wash pots. Michelle knows how to cook. I put that into the book. But when I went through some of the kitchens with my friends, like one of them, we walked through, and she took me into this little room, and all this food was really nicely on the shelves. It was kind of cold in there. And we walked out the other side. She said, "Do you know where you are?" And I said, "No." And she said, "That was called a walk-through freezer. If it had only a wall here, it wouldn't have been walked through." So I had to learn from the basics up, and I did. And I stole, like, there's a line in the book, Two Bites Too Many, talking about a light fixture, because one of the chefs who had just opened a restaurant told me the following. He pointed to a light fixture and he said, "I could spend $1,000 or $2,000 on the fixture over the bar. Or I could spend $100 on that and put the same money into my kitchen. When people are drunk and the lights are down, they're going to not notice that fixture." So I borrowed that. And I have to tell you, what he put in his kitchen, it's worth going there.
So you both found your niche in mystery. I noticed, Deborah, you've done kind of the cozy theme, pretty much all of your books. And Hallie, you're doing the domestic thrillers, suspense. So it seems like you found that niche right away. What drew you both to mystery, and what has kept you there?
Well, for me, mystery was always my escape, mystery and biographies. I would use mystery because my jobs have always been rather challenging. And I could take a whodunit and have to figure it out, and I would relax. So was reading traditional mystery and cozy and liking those. And I could read my kind of book, two of them flying across the country. So that is how I got into it. But I really grew up from being a child. I started reading mystery, and it's my favorite genre.
Me too.
And I think that's why I ended up writing in it, just for the humor and the enjoyment of it. Hallie, what about you?
And I remember the first mystery I really loved was P.D. James's An Unsuitable Job for a Woman. I don't know if anybody knows that book. It's a little bit, oh, I see a hand going up. It's a little bit of an outlier for her. It was, I think there were only 3 books with those characters, but I just loved it. It was so smart. And of course, she is a magnificent writer. Never mind that she's writing mysteries. And so when I decided to write, I decided to go for something that had and I use the word cautiously, formula. It's like going into a playground and there's a slide and a merry-go-round and there's 5 or 6 different things you can do. You can do different things with them, but that's what you're dealing with. And with a mystery novel, the terrain has that kind of set format. You're going to have a puzzle. That there's going to be a main character who tries to solve the puzzle and who has something at stake that becomes revealed to the reader. There's all kinds of machinery that has to work beautifully and then disappear to the reader. So I actually wrote 5 series novels with a writing partner before I wrote my first domestic suspense. And that was because I didn't think I had anything to write about. I'd been a teacher, I'd been in high tech. I thought, boring, boring, boring. Who wants to read about that? And you're supposed to write what you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I teamed up with a dear friend, someone we've known for years, who's a forensic neuropsychologist who evaluates people accused of murder and has this really fascinating mystery-ready life with all this experience. And we co-authored 5 Peter Zach novels for St. Martin's Press. And then I was frankly tired of collaborating and splitting what was not that much money for a lot of work. And I also felt like I knew that I could write about myself. I could write about being a mother. I could write about being a sister. I could write about domesticity. My books are set in houses more than they are in cities or planets. And I just felt like I'd found myself. I'll just tell a quick story. The idea for the first suspense novel came to me at a yard sale. I really do love yard sales. This was about 15 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. I went to a yard sale around the corner, chatting with the woman, because I know this house. My daughter used to play there. There are new owners. They've been updating the house. I'm asking her all these questions about what they're doing, and she says, would you like to go inside and look around? And I said, oh my God, I'd love to. So I go in, and there's something very creepy about seeing in someone else's empty house. And I go around, and finally the mystery writer in me kicked in, and I thought, what if a woman goes to a yard sale, she talks her way into the house, she goes inside, and she never comes out? And then by the time I got home, I thought the woman having the yard sale is 9 months pregnant, and the woman who disappears into the house is also 9 months pregnant. And that was the setup for the book. And it's been smooth sailing since then. Mm-hmm. Writing smaller stories, intensely personal. And as I say, I never hurt children. You can read one of my books, and even though it's about a child, the kid is never going to be damaged.
And I think that's something we both do. You steal from what you know. I like to also write from what I don't know, such as cooking. But that is part of what makes the book realistic. And I do the same thing in my short stories. They're a little darker than my my novels, but I do think you steal from what you know, and then your imagination goes wild. And that's the beauty of being a mystery writer.
And we have some people, we have some members of the Gutsy Great Novelist Writer Studio with us tonight.
Really?
So
Hi,
for
Guts.
them, so will authors ever run out of ways to kill their characters?
No, just like in the real world, there's always something new.
Well,
So
to
go
me,
ahead, Hallie.
it's not the how that's interesting. It's the why.
Hmm.
It's the it's that's what's always fascinating to me is how did these characters end up in this situation? Um, and that you never run out of because backstory, where people come from, how they've been damaged or coddled or whatever in the past, that's just rich. You can do all kinds of things with that.
And I think how they extricate themselves, that's also part of it. Because to me, when I'm reading the book, if the writer is fair, which I hope most mystery writers are, and I know Hallie is because I've read a lot of her books, um, the whodunit is actually character driven. I mean, there's a plot,
Mhm.
but you're going to be there with the character. And if it's fair, that you can figure it out too. But to me, the challenge is if I couldn't figure out the book, then I really know it's a well-written book to some extent.
That's my 5 stars. If I can't figure it out, it gets 4 or 5 stars. Yep. So you both have accolades that fill your resumes, almost as much as your books. You have as many accolades as books. Which honor, I know you mentioned Jamie Lee Curtis, but which honor are you both proud of receiving for your books?
My honor wasn't for my books. I got a Lifetime Achievement Award, and I have to say I groaned because I'm not that old, but I got a Lifetime Achievement Award from the New England Mystery Writers of America and New England Sisters in Crime, who have an annual conference called the New England Crime Bake, which is a blast, and I can't wait until we can meet again in person. But for years, I've been very active in Sisters in Crime and Mystery Writers of America, and I do a lot of teaching. I have a best-selling How to Write book, which was nominated for an Edgar Award, and it was so nice to be recognized for helping people move along in their careers because there's so many good writers out there who are really struggling to get their names out there and their books read. So that was the best.
I find it's an interesting question because I have two different careers of honors, shall we say. Um, I've been lucky enough, since I've been playing this one, to have been nominated for an Agatha and Anthony, a Beringer, and a Silver Faustian, and even one an Ippy. But those are really great, and I hope I keep getting nominated. Hallie, please build me up, because I'm starting out. But really, one of my favorite ones because was a Girl Scout one. It was a Girl Scout Woman of the Year award. I had been a Girl Scout Woman of the Year with a group, but then they gave me what they called the Eleanor Jones Award, I think it was. And it was really exciting because that was the year the Girl Scout troop that I also was a leader of had made it up, and all the young women were Young Woman of the Year. And it was the first time a mother and a daughter in the state had been honored at the same time. And that to me is still one of my most special awards.
Wonderful. That's
That is
wonderful,
so
both of you.
sweet.
Well, it's kind
Yeah.
of funny because my mother, who was a Holocaust survivor, was my Girl Scout leader. And so it's been fun to do it generation to generation. And my daughter now has her first daughter, and I bet you she'll do the same thing.
What has been the most interesting thing that you've learned while researching any of your books? Doesn't have to be our current ones we're talking about, any of your books. What's the most interesting thing you've learned?
I think when I first won Maize and Blue, for me, one of the most interesting things was learning the tunnel system underneath the university. That was a lot of fun because everything in Ann Arbor is connected and you can get anywhere you want when I was a student there, that's how the streakers used to get, they'd streak, they'd disappear before the cops could get them because they'd go down in the tunnels. And so I was doing a lot of research. The other thing has been learning about recipes, because I've actually been, really getting into reading about them. I collect cookbooks. I don't use them, but I collect them.
And for me, I'd have to point to an earlier book, which is called "You'll Never Know, Dear," which is about it's got a doll on the cover, and it's about one of the main characters is a woman who collects and repairs dolls, and I have to say I really enjoyed I don't know, the creepiness of. I got into writing that book because I had a friend she'd grown up in Fayetteville, and her mother was retiring and needed help downsizing. And my friend went down there to help her. And she told me every time she'd reach underneath the bed to, get stuff out and to get rid of it, she would come up with boxes and boxes of doll parts. Eyeballs, heads, legs. I just loved the image. She was so freaked out by it. And she said to me, put that in a book. And it's the only time anyone has ever given me a suggestion that I actually followed. And I learned a lot about doll repair and the people who, and all the things about dolls that make them interesting. And I was especially interested in portrait dolls, people who make porcelain portrait dolls that look just like real little girls. So creepy, the whole idea of it. And that's what I wove into the story, was a little girl who disappears with her portrait doll, the portrait doll that her mother made for her. And 40 years later, the doll comes back. So what happened to the little girl? So that was now, isn't this pathetic? I have to look on my shelf to remember what the title of my own book is. You'll Never Know, Dear.
We did have a question, and because like you have mentioned, I will read a thriller, and sometimes those things get so into your head that I will go in and read a cozy mystery, one or two cozy mysteries next, to kind of, get that thriller out of your head. So we had somebody who asked, and maybe Deborah, you can explain it. I mean, I could try, but what does it mean to be a cozy mystery?
Sure. Traditionally, a cozy mystery has an amateur sleuth. It is a small setting. In my Sarah Blair books, it is a small southern town that I created, Wheaton, Alabama. And in one of my others, it's a small town, Wahoo, Alabama, but the actual small setting is a retirement center. And even in Maids in Blue, I use the university. So it's a small setting that, because I use the English department to kill people. But the issue is then it is clean. You don't find any cursing usually in them. I mean, it might be a dam or something today in the edgier ones, but it's clean. The murder is going to take place off of the page. So you're not going to see blood and gore. You're also not going to see a lot of sex. They may be going in, but they're going to close the door before you get into the room with them. And so those are pretty much the elements of the cozy. And usually they have a cat.
I was going to say, there's usually about 70% have cats.
I was told I needed a cat. That is why Rah-Rah exists in my books. And you may have a lot of you be cat lovers, and you will find Rah-Rah is true to being a Siamese cat. But just like I don't cook, I don't cat. So I had to go research cats. And I interviewed friends, and one in particular, I must have spent 4 hours interviewing her, observing her, and seeing how a cat can go around your neck, how a cat sits on your feet. Yeah, Kathy, I can see you have a cat. I needed the behavior. And when she described her cat to me, she even, true cat lovers love their cats. True dog lovers love their dogs. I had grown up with dogs. That's why in 2 Bites Too Many, a dog had to come in and had to be rescued. But she sent me a picture of her Siamese cat. And when Kensington, who's my publisher, asked me what I was thinking about, and they looked at the cat I had written into the book, she looked at it and they nailed it. They got her cat on the cover, and she's been the happiest camper thereafter. I've been happy because I've really gotten to know this cat, and I have a dog in there now, so I'm a happy camper. I put them every, because animals do become a good part of the story. They become a character, but mine don't think, mine don't speak, mine are animals.
What have been some of your inspirations for both of you, whether it's just to write or in your writing? What has inspired you?
I think you can't, one of the things about writers that I have learned now that I'm 16 books in is even though it doesn't seem to you as if the books are the same, in a lot of ways, writers are recycling a lot of their own experiences, a lot of their own angst, a lot of their just so much personal stuff ends up in fiction. So I think that is something that just you can't help it. And so for me, all of the issues I may have had with my mother, with my sisters, with stuff that I don't want in my house, all of that stuff gets into the books. It's you won't know it when you read it. The other thing that my books keep recycling, and I don't know why this is the question of who can you trust? And yeah, I don't know why. It's always there, and there's always a character who is vulnerable and has to decide whether to trust somebody or not. Sometimes to good effect, and sometimes not.
I think for me, the inspiration, I start with family because, as I said, my mother was a Holocaust survivor, and having a family was very important to her. So her influence was a big influence on me. Um, I often bring in, like in my book, Should Have Played Poker, I brought in religion and whether the Judaism, where that fit in, because I had a character who wasn't Jewish who found out she was Jewish. So I find faith comes into mine a little bit. In these, it's more humorous, but there's always family encounter. And whether the family is close, whether the family is apart, I steal from that. I'm the mother of twins. Gee, twins are in the book. Um, people often say I had a home lab because they're so different. And so I made these two very different. And I think that who can you trust also becomes a question in all of these books, because I think part of a murder mystery and part of the cycle of life is who you trust, who you interact with, and who you love. And I think that comes through in my writing of my stories, and that's an inspiration. Also, what other people tell me about the kitchen becomes an inspiration.
And it's true, a lot of who you can trust, and it could even be the narrator of the book. There's been so many mysteries written recently where you can't even trust the narrator of the book. So yeah, that's very true.
The
Um,
unreliable narrator has become very
mhm.
popular.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, it
Gone
is.
Girl really launched
Yes,
that. Although she was not the first, because Agatha Christie wrote The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, in which
yes.
the narrator did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I hope nobody's trying to read that book now. I just spoiled it for you. Um, but one of the interesting things. Okay, I like to talk about writing, about the wonky side of what writing, and if you look at Gone Girl and Roger Ackroyd, the way that the author gets away with that is by having the character narrate through a diary or letters, not through their mind. Because Debra said earlier, don't uh, play fair with the reader. And that's how you manage to play fair while basically having the character lie, because it's what they're writing, it's not what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that readers get upset if you lie, if you have a character who's just bald-faced lying in their thoughts.
Mhm.
That's unless they're self-deluded or narcissistic or many ways you can make it believable, but generally lying is not something you want to put in internal dialogue. That's very
Since we do have a few inspiring writers that have joined us this evening, any words of wisdom for them?
Do it.
yeah.
Don't put it off. I wish I had started it earlier, but and I think that make it enjoyable. It is not meant to be a torture. Those are my two. Hallie is very good on the technical. I've taken her some of her classes and things, and and that is something I really believe in, is taking classes, because we all come out. If I look at my first book, the Maize and Blue book, and I look at the book that's coming out in May, Four Cuts Too Many, there is an evolution in my writing. And a lot of it was from taking guppy classes, from going to conferences, from anything that I could learn from, any book I could read, anything I could do. But you have to stop reading and learning at one point, or I should say, you keep doing that, but you also have to sit down and write, because if you don't, um, it never goes anywhere.
And I would, add that, I mean, anyone who wants to write is usually someone who's been a reader. And so you're steeped in good literature, good sentences, good word choices. And so you start writing and you think, I've read a million books. How hard can it be? And it turns out to be extremely hard. And not only that, because you know what good writing smells like, your stuff stinks. And so I always say, just hold your nose and write, because that's the only way to get from here to here. You just have to keep at it, which is basically what Debra is saying. Don't, yeah. I also don't think there's anything wrong with having some life experience along the way. I mean, I think there's a reason why so many really young people who are writing today are writing fantasy and science fiction, because they don't have the experience to build a real world within the context of today. But as you age, you're accumulating all that stuff. So don't minimize the value of just having a few years under you to as kind of prelude to telling your stories.
And one other thing is, don't think every word you write is perfect. You have to learn that there's going to be a time you've got to throw out the words, because they really do stink.
Yeah.
I kept putting off, and I kept talking about writing and writing. And one of my dear friends said to me finally, look, you keep talking about this. If you want to do it, leave the 4 kids with Joel, come down to the beach. I'm going to give you the condo for the weekend. And what I want you to do is write, except we're going out for dinner because I like good dinners. But you're going to write. And if you don't write, I don't ever want to hear about it again. So I got up every morning for the 3 mornings we were there, and I wrote all day. And I wrote longhand, because that's, I wasn't computering at that point. And I wrote 85 pages, and this was on Maize and Blue. And I knew when we left that weekend, I was ecstatic. I said, my gosh, I've got it. I see a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I know I can write. And I want you to know there are at least 5 of those pages that are in the book. Because it was so bad. And some of you may have read Ann George's books. I don't know. She wrote the Bad Hair Day books, and she was also the Alabama Poet Laureate. I had the honor of getting to speak to her on a few occasions. And I went up to her and I said, and I loved her books. They were cozy and they were very easy reads. I went up to her and I said, Ms. George, I need to ask a question. Just like we're here, sitting here, I'm trying hard to write. And the book I'm writing, first of all, the murder doesn't happen for 85 pages. Secondly, it's not moving real fast. And I don't know what to do. And she says, well, first you got to move the murder up, and you got to drop some pages. You have to kill your darlings. And I said, and I started laughing. She says, worst comes to worst. She said, I had that problem myself. And when I finally solved it is, I would just drop the body. I had just read her new book, and it started out with the protagonist and the protagonist's cousin sitting across from a restaurant, and they look up and a body drops. And so I knew that's how she'd done it.
So now that kind of leads to a question that someone asked when you're talking about just going and writing and focusing on writing. Have either of you ever taken part in NaNoWriMo, the National Novel Writing Month?
I haven't. I hate the blank page. I hate writing first draft. I love editing. So for me to do NaNoWriMo would be torture, complete torture. But I know an awful lot of people who just want to get a first draft out, and then they're going to, fix it. And my hat off to anyone who can do it. Debra, have you tried it?
I have tried it. I did it twice. And
Really?
yeah, and both times I finished, and neither book have I ever tried to sell.
Well, there you go.
Because for me, they're both a concept that I want to write, but what I put on paper was rushed, and it just isn't any good.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty. As you start writing more, you know when you're writing something bad. I don't know about you, Hallie, but when I'm really writing something good, I lose track of time. I lose track of the world. I'm in the zone. When it's really bad, I'm looking at anything I can do, even cleaning up the house.
Yeah, I have to say that's not my experience. I have either it's everything's great day or I have a everything is terrible day. And when I go back and read what I wrote that day, I can't see the difference between the it's a great day and it's a terrible day writing. It's only in retrospect that I can see it. But I'm also a ditherer when I write. I make a decision and then I second guess it and change it. And my path through a book is not this. It's this spinning, 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 constantly going back. And, that's all about how different people write. There is no one way. That is the other thing I would tell aspiring writers. Do not let anybody tell you there's only one way to write. There are a million ways, one for every writer, and you have to honor your strengths, your weaknesses, and your proclivities, and who you are and how you like to work.
And that's what somebody asked, is they were interested in your process. Do you use storyboards, index cards? What are your processes for creating your stories?
I use all of the above, whatever works. I mean, yeah, sometimes I just start writing and then I'll stop and do some outlining. Maybe I'll do an idea tree. Maybe I'll take out a whole bunch of different colored index cards and just jot ideas down. That's when my mind floods with ideas and I have to get them down. I get, sentences on little cards and then rearrange them. I will do anything to get a story shaped.
For me, I'm a pantser at heart, which is a person who just writes. And as I said, that's why, like with the short story, when it's working, it is just working. But it was funny because when I wrote One Taste Too Many, that one, I'm pantsing along. And halfway through the book, my mom passed away. And I was having a great time writing it. And all of a sudden, I couldn't write for 4 months. And I came back and I finished the book and I hated it. And I realized I had written from the middle to the end the wrong character. As having done it, I had been trying to push the story. So I threw out half the book, rewrote it, and the new version was what Kensington bought. Except I have an editor who believes in outlining, and he wants detailed information about what the book's going to do, which does not work well with my brain. But my then agent told me, make sure you write a very long synopsis for him. So I wrote 18 pages and sent it in for the second book. And he wrote back, next time, double space. But he accepted it. Now I've gotten shorter. He seems to be buying it. And he also understands that about midway through the book, he's going to get an email mentioning that another character popped up or another situation popped up. And I keep waiting for him to say no. But so far, as I said, the 4th book is coming out in May. And he seems to think that, gee, the changes are okay. So
So we had another question. It's a two-part question. Have either of you read, and I'll keep my opinion on part number one quiet. I'm very opinionated about books. So have either of the authors read The Silent Patient, and do you agree it should be made into a movie? And then part two, have any of your books gotten a TV option?
I have not read The Silent Patient, so should I?
eh,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I read another one that I think is better, but
yeah, I read it.
I have had a book made into a movie. The book about the woman who throws a yard sale and the woman comes to her house and disappears. That was made into a Lifetime movie network movie called And Baby Will Fall. And I have to tell you, it is a terrible movie. And they killed the dog. There are very few rules in mystery writing, but one ironclad rule in mystery writing is do not kill the animal. Don't kill the dog, don't kill the cat. And
Or the
they
baby.
killed the dog or the baby, yeah. Babies are easier to lose in mystery novels than animals, honestly. But anyway, it was, I made a nice amount of money from it, and I got a lot of credibility with my publisher. And I think it got me my third book contract, which I might not have had because my second book didn't do as well. That's kind of the inside story there, but it wasn't, it wasn't too exciting. I mean, I'm not Dennis Lehane. He gets to go on the set, he gets to he gets to write the script. No, there's nothing like that. I would say it was like the Immaculate Conception.
I have not had an option yet, but I pray. But I did read The Silent Patient, and it was not my favorite book because I figured it out very quickly, though you're not supposed to. And yes, it should be made into a movie because it's something that's the world is going to, there's going to be a fan base that's going to like it.
Yeah. So as we finish up, what do you both have? I know Deborah's got a couple. So what do you guys have coming up? What are some of your new projects coming up?
Well, for me, 4 Cuts Too Many, well, 3 Treats Too Many, well, excuse me, 3 Treats Too Many came out in August, this past August of 2020. And I will hold it up. 4 Cuts Too Many, I don't know if you can see it, will be coming out in May, on May 25th of this year. I just finishing up 5 Bells Too Many, which is going to be the 2022 book. I also have a few short stories coming out this year. I know of at least 3 that are already in anthologies that have been accepted and are coming out. And the other thing is I'm working on something very new and not cozy. So we'll see what happens.
That's
Oh,
exciting.
that sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have been, I don't know, I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I'm at a turning point and I need to do something a little different. So one of the things I've been doing is going through, when I started writing, one of the things I did was I wrote a lot of essays, personal essays. I think a lot of people do that. And so I'm going through them and kind of collecting them and seeing what it looks like and thinking about whether there's a way of putting them together. And in the meanwhile, I'm working on a novel that's, my daughters live in Brooklyn. And my dream is one day we're all going to be in a townhouse in Brooklyn and in a brownstone. And I'm going to be on the top floor and the girls are going to be on the floors below. And we're going to have a common room in the basement kitchen, I think, a big warm kitchen. So I'm kind of putting that into a book and thinking if each of these women, it has a fundamental difference with the others, that you can't write a book like ours without conflict. So I'm always, that's something we didn't talk about, but conflict is it grows out of character. So I'm working on those women and trying to think, who are they? What are they? How are they at loggerheads with each other? How are they working together? So I got a lot of things going, but not nearly the stellar array that Debra does.
Well, I know we will be happy to share all of your new books coming out. We do have our Facebook page, the Northwest Ohio Jewish Book Festival. If anybody's on Facebook, be sure to join us there. And the 2021 season for Book Festival will be coming up. In May, we meet with Jewish Book Council, and our festival will be in November again as usual. So I know, but throughout the year, we'll be happy to share those books. So I want to thank everyone for joining this evening, hanging out with me while I get to talk to two authors, my favorite things to do. And so I just want to thank everybody for attending. Again, thank you to the Jewish Federation and Foundation of Greater Toledo, the Jewish Senior Supporting Services Organization, Jewish Book Council for being here, for helping sponsor this. Thank you, Debra. Thank you, Hallie, for joining us this evening. If anybody wants to get their books, I know you can get them at the library. Barnes & Noble has them. I asked them to make sure we had some of them in stock. I got bookmarks from Debra today, and I think Hallie mailed some book plates. So those should be arriving soon. So if anybody wants those, just send me an email and I'll get those mailed out to you. So thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. So thank you, Debra, and thank you, Hallie.
Stephanie.
Thank you for having us for a night of mystery.
Thank you so much.
We enjoyed being with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hallie,
so
it was
much.
good to see you.
A wonderful evening.
Hallie?
Yeah.
How's Molly? Is she good?
She is.
Give her a hug for me, okay?
I will. And Robin's good?
Yep, she's great. She's
We
great.
have daughters in common.
Yes, our daughters were roommates together. She has
Oh,
two
nice.
boys and
Actually here